Hello, my friends. Welcome. I wanted to jump in quickly and speak a little bit about introverts. Now, if you've been paying attention, you may have noticed that the information on my bio section has changed over the last couple of weeks. Hey, Tiff. And it sparked a conversation with someone in my community recently about introversion. And I'm pretty sure that this conversation needs to be had because the idea about who an introvert is, what introverts are, what they're not, and whether or not you are an introvert, this conversation can be brought to the forefront, and I want to be the one to have this convo with you. So I've got my notes on a little piece of paper to my left. So if you see me gazing to my left, it's because I want to make sure that I'm super articulate and that I deliver everything that I wanted to say as part of this live. And of course, if there's anything that comes up for you that you want to share, feel free to drop it in the comments, or you can always DM me privately and we can have this convo about introversion. The main point that I want to hone in on here is that introversion is not a bad thing. It's not something that you are, that you have to suffer through. There are so many beautiful traits of introverts, things that we can lean on to make our experiences richer and also in our community. So let's start off with what is an introvert? And if this is something that you identify with, please let me know. It's always so nice to meet my community, my introverted community. So an introvert is someone who tends to be more focused on their inner world, so their inner thoughts, their feelings, rather than someone who seeks external stimulation. Okay, this is the first most important piece about introversion. It's that we're super focused on what's going on within us rather than what's going on around us. Introverts often feel recharged by spending time alone or in quiet settings. And I think this is one of the most powerful ways to distinguish whether or not you're an introvert, is that you feel better when you've spent time alone. Sometimes I feel quite exhausted or drained when I'm in a situation where there's a lot of people and it's really loud. And it's not that I don't necessarily enjoy being there at the time. It's just that I need a little bit of space when I get back into my own environment so that I can recalibrate. So that's one of the first things that you can sit with, is whether or not you enjoy or feel recharged when you're alone, or do you actually feel recharged when you're out in social settings? And I'll speak a little bit more about some myths, some introverted myths or introversion myths in a second, so that we can bust those myths before you go about deciding whether you're an introvert or not. Okay, so introverts may also find social settings, especially that in large groups, quite draining. That doesn't mean that they're shy or antisocial. To the contrary, they just prefer meaningful, deep connections versus superficial interactions. Okay, so you'll normally see an introvert at a party sitting down with someone having a really juicy conversation, someone who's, in there straight away, having that D&M with someone in maybe even the corner or the quiet spot of the party. Introverts often excel in reflective activities and are known for introspection, creativity, and thoughtfulness. Yeah. So what is an introvert? What is not an introvert? Yeah. An introvert is not shy or antisocial. And this is the biggest thing that I just want to have a chat about. Like, if you are shy or you feel antisocial, that does not mean you're introverted. It means that you're shy or you're antisocial. Introversion is more about deep, meaningful connections It's about having a strong, rich inner life. And also introverts are very empathic or empathetic as well. Hey, Shan. And so it's important to distinguish that shyness is actually closely related to a fear of judgment. And introversion is more about preferring less stimulating activities and environments. Yeah. So introverts are not necessarily poor communicators, and I'm reading this from my notes, or lacking in social skills. They can be quite effective in social situations, especially when they feel comfortable. Introverts are not inherently aloof or unfriendly. And I think that sometimes we can mistake people for, say, if you have an antisocial tendency, or even if you have a bit of social anxiety, that is not the same as introversion. That is what it is. It's feeling anxious in social situations. Maybe you're afraid of, like I said, being judged. That's also something. So let's get into some common myths about introverts. The first myth is something that I've briefly discussed now, is that introverts are shy. It's not about shyness. It's about the way that we enjoy spending our energy. It's about our energy preferences. Where do we feel fueled up? Where do we get charged up? In what sort of environment do you enjoy spending your time in? What's the social setting that you feel most comfortable in? Is it you and a couple of friends going for a lunch and having some really thoughtful conversations? Or is it you joining a party and getting to see all of your friends at once and dancing the night away? Yeah. Introverts dislike people. That is so not true. Introverts actually love people. They just prefer smaller groups of people. Introverts are antisocial. Not true. And this is something that I've been called a lot of times. It's not that. Introverts are not antisocials. They value being in social settings, but they also value their time alone. And the better you get at understanding your own energy, the better you become at discerning whether it's right for you in that moment to go to the social situation, gathering, whatever it is, or stay at home and recharge in that way. Yeah. Number 4, introverts lack leadership skills. Huge myth that needs to be busted, because introverts can be excellent leaders. In fact, introverts are incredible, empathic and thought leaders. They really are thoughtful leaders, shall I say. They're very thoughtful because they value their internal world. They think a lot, they feel a lot. And as leaders, that's such an incredible place to come from. You know, if you're leading a team or a group of people, to be truly connected to that group and to be in service to that group is one of the most profound ways that leaders can show up. And so being an introvert as a leader is such an incredible skill, such an incredible skill. Introverts are always quiet. That's another myth. That's hilarious because I am so not quiet. I'm loud about the things that I'm passionate about, and then I don't mind keeping quiet about the things that are not really important or valuable to me. Yeah? Introverts don't like to go out. That's a lie. We love going out. It's just that there are also times that we prefer spending time in our own environment, at home, in a place where there's not a lot of people. Yeah. Introverts are not team players. We are absolutely team players. We bring deep focus, creativity, and problem solving to group projects. And number 8, the last myth that I'll just bust here, is that introverts are less successful. And we just have to do a quick little Google search to find out the names of all the people in the world who are successful who would consider themselves introverts. Steve Jobs is a name that just comes to mind immediately. He considered himself an introvert, and we have Apple. So signs that you may be an introvert, listen carefully. You have a preference for solitude. You like small social gatherings. Maybe you have a small social circle. You enjoy deep conversations. You don't want to keep it shallow. You want to go straight in for those deep and meaningful conversations. You have a need for downtime. Like, you genuinely need space and time for yourself. You have a very reflective nature. So you may have a conversation with someone, something may happen at work or at home, and then you jump in the car or you spend time away from that situation and you really reflect on what happened and how you showed up and, you know, all of those things. This is reflection. Maybe it even turns into a contemplative nature. You become quite contemplative. You have this sense of contemplation. You have a desire for thoughtful communication. You think before you speak. You don't think out loud, right? I know a lot of people in my life who like to process their thoughts out loud, who like to have a conversation with someone to figure out what they're thinking and how they're feeling. Introverts generally don't have that. We like to process internally, and then when we feel ready, we then speak whatever it is that we need to say. So we're ones for thoughtful communication, and sometimes that distance between thinking about it and saying it is short-lived. It could be a pregnant pause, or it could be a week that goes by before we actually speak. We have a dislike for interruptions, and what I mean by that is we love to be super focused and do deep work, meaning an example from my own life is that I really love when I get to spend, say, 3 or 4 hours in a creative project and I turn my phone on, do not disturb. I've got no notifications coming through. I'm sitting with my laptop with some music playing in the background and I'm in deep, meaningful work. And I love that so much. It makes me feel so fired up. It's one of my favorite ways to work. And introverts generally love that. Some quiet time, some space for themselves to really work creatively and go deep in the work that they're doing. We have comfort in being alone. I love when I'm spending time on my own. I'm sure that there's a lot of you that are here in this community that enjoy that as well. I feel overstimulated in crowded environments, noisy environments, brightly lit environments. It's just too much, and that's not sensory overload. It's just my natural tendencies to become more charged, if I were a battery, in quiet settings, beautiful settings. And signs that you may be an introvert, the last one is that you're really good at observing situations and people. You're an observer and you're very happy to sit on the sidelines and watch what's going on and just take in your surroundings. Now, of course, you're not an introvert or an extrovert. Yeah, there are parts of you that are extroverted and there are parts of you that are introverted. In fact, if you sit right in the middle where there's an equal amount of you that loves extroversion and introversion, you're actually called an ambivert. There's a word for it, which means that you have tendencies to both extroversion and introversion. And of course, for me personally, I'm 80% introvert, and there are moments where I'm extroverted. I used to dance professionally on stages. I love speaking to large groups. I love teaching large groups. Like, those tendencies are extroverted tendencies that I have. But then I know after those events or after conferences or times when I'm in large group settings, I have to retreat back to my setting, to my home, where it's quiet and I can then recharge on my own. And so I really hope that this video has given you a little bit of insight, because I'll be speaking a lot about introspective and introverted leadership. And I started speaking about it a few weeks ago, and I just want to make everyone really aware about what I'm referring to when I speak about an introverted leader, an ambitious introverted leader. We have this idea of what introverts are, and I think we need to firstly change the understanding to everything that I've just said and more. There's obviously so much more to learn. And then also recognize within ourselves whether or not we have these tendencies, because I think we can be so much more efficient, so much more productive, so much more of ourselves if we can see how we perform, work best in the world, and then we can give ourselves more of that. You know, the moment I realized that I worked better in solitude, it changed the way that I then take on projects or how I position myself in the workplace and the jobs that I take on and the things that I do. And so it's not that you then say no to everything that's extroverted. You have to push yourself, and you have to find yourself in positions where you're expanding a little bit and in a bit of a growth phase. You put yourself in positions and situations that make you feel a little bit uncomfortable, but then you know exactly how to come back into a place where you can recalibrate and find your center again. And so over the next few weeks, months, maybe even years, I'll be speaking specifically to the introverted parts of you, to you as an introvert, and helping you see the skills you have, the ways that you work best, and helping you to understand that introversion is actually not a bad thing. It's a really good thing, and that you can be ambitious and successful and smart, and you can be anything you want to be as someone who enjoys time alone, who enjoys introspective leadership, and yeah, that's my wish and my hope, is that you find your place in the world as someone who feels that they work so well on their own and they enjoy quiet time. The world is made up of predominantly of introverts and extroverts, but because of social media, we see a lot of extroverts. I suppose depends on what your algorithm is feeding you, but you know, extroverts are more loud, they're more in your face, and that's what makes them so great, because they're just so inspiring and motivating, and they're able to show up all the time, because that's where they get their energy from. They get their energy from being in social situations and circles and being on all the time. And without extroverts, our world would be pretty dull. But I see far too many introverts trying to be extroverts. I know for a fact I was one of them for so many years, and I burnt out at least 4 times trying to fit my introversion into into an extroverted world, and it just doesn't work. It doesn't work. And so my hope is that this little corner of the internet from now on will be just some support for you as an introvert as you learn how to lean into your skills. All right, my friends, have a beautiful, beautiful evening or day, depending on where you are in the world. And if you've got any questions, of course, please DM me, pop it into the comments below, and let's keep this conversation going. Bye for now.